And we are live January 18th, 2021. Happy Martin Luther King Day to wherever you may be listening to us. Ryan Ray alongside the good Dr. Ellen Wald. Dr. Wald, how are you doing today?
Things are fantastic. And I just want to give a quick shout out to my baby brother, Ben, who sometimes listens to the podcast. Yesterday was his birthday, and let's all wish him a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Ben, you said, right?
Yes.
Happy birthday, Ben. And if you have any good Ellen Wald stories that you want us to, to read on the podcast, my DMs are open. So let me know. Okay. Well, Miss Wald, we are, 2 days away now from the Biden administration taking over, right?
I think. I don't know. Apparently, there are countdowns somewhere. I'm not looking at them.
So it's Wednesday, though, right? It's Wednesday.
It's coming. It's
Wednesday.
yeah,
Right.
but I think it's the 20th.
Right. Okay. So we have a
Today's
couple
the
stories,
18th.
but I'm gonna swap the order on the stories because with the inauguration news comes the RIP moment of silence for the Keystone Pipeline. I mean, is this the end of 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 the Keystone, or will it, be like the Phoenix and rise from the ashes?
I mean, you can never say never. It's kind of interesting because the news seemed to broke last night with a Canadian with the Canadian news site saying that like they had news Biden plans to cancel it, and then shortly thereafter, the Wall Street Journal breaks with this article saying that TransCanada wants to pledge zero carbon emissions, which was a very interesting piece. Mostly because so at first you read and they're saying by 2030 the Keystone XL pipeline will run on renewable energy. So how much energy does it take to run a pipeline? I'm really unclear about this. Like I know you have these like stations periodically, right? And so they have to like push the oil
Yeah.
through, or I mean, like how much energy?
And potentially have to heat it depending on what they're doing. For something like this, I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, this is a long project, and so I don't know how many miles it is. Yeah, 2,000 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not. It's some energy. I don't know. I don't know how much, but yeah, I never thought about that. How much it would be. If you turn that into to net zero, whatever, you can put up a few solar panels, maybe a wind farm here or there, plant some trees along the right of way.
Okay, so here's the thing. First of all, a lot of energy installations use solar panels anyway. Like they're out in the middle of nowhere. I see them. I've seen them all the time. I know for a fact that in Saudi Arabia, when they were, like doing work there, that Aramco was using Exxon solar panels on its like stations out in the middle of nowhere because they couldn't get power lines. So I see them in Wyoming when I drive around. There's all sorts of like infrastructure there that's got solar panels on it because it makes sense if it's out in the middle of nowhere to run on solar panels. So it's like it's very unclear what they're saying. So some people were like messaging me and they're like, I really hope they don't put windmills up in the middle of this because it's going to ruin my property, my view and everything. Then you scroll down to the bottom of this Wall Street Journal article and you find out that what they really mean is that they're offering to spend like a lot of money
Right.
on they're promising, Keystone is promising to fund new renewable energy infrastructure to generate 1.6 gigawatts of power. So this doesn't mean they're actually going to use renewable energy for their pipeline. They're just saying we're going to fund the building of 1.6 gigawatts of power. And apparently that would rival the country's biggest corporate renewables purchases, which are made by Amazon and Google. So what do you want to bet that ends up being like offsets if it even happens? But still, so it doesn't mean like the pipeline will be run on renewable energy. It just means like they're going to pay money so somebody else can have renewable energy.
Right. I don't know what the policy is on solar panels on top of a pipeline right away. I can guarantee you that you're not going to let a windmill be brought up right away because of the fact that you can't work up underneath it. So that's not going to happen. You'd have to be building these infrastructure off of the right of way somewhere else. You'd acquire additional right of way to do that. So maybe they've had that in place, but not. The bigger concern for me is that if you kind of kiss the ring now for this, then you have essentially this project is. Listen, I know they want to get underway and all this stuff, but how does this bode for later on? A year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, when you want to build another large project. And the Biden administration, because he's to be in the next 4 years, he said, "We're going to do this." This is what you did a few years ago. So if you want to get this done, this is what you have to do. Another thing is, let's say you go through it and they still don't process your permits, or some group ties up in court. Like, there would have to be guaranteed contracts and stuff before, if I were them, I'd ever consider this, because it sounds like it's just you're walking into a disaster. Final thing is, whatever they do, the green side will not accept it. Like, the sacrifice of oil and gas companies making green pledges is never received as goodwill. It's received as what it really is, which is virtue signaling, and the green side doesn't accept that. So you're not going to get any goodwill by doing this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it's even more than what this was signal, which is basically like, you want to do something in the US, you have to like pay your renewable power like tax, not like a tax, like a bribe, right? It's more like a bribe. It's like you got to pay your but it also says that to companies that are looking to do business, like, or looking to do infrastructure projects in the US, it's basically saying nothing is for sure. The political situation could change in 4 years, and they'll just invalidate your project and everything, which is why they're now talking, Alberta is now talking about suing the US over this, because they've put in money. In fact, but a lot of people have been saying, like, we're taking this, and they were like, well, Keystone XL pipeline has been dead for 10 years anyway, so like, what's the big deal? That wasn't my understanding. I mean, I get that, like, it hasn't been built yet, but some sections have actually been built. And in fact, I found this article from November that was talking about in October, TransCanada awarded 6 U.S. union contractors $1.6 billion in contracts to build this thing. In Montana, in companies from Montana, Houston, Wisconsin, 2 from Wisconsin, and another one from Texas. So like, they'd awarded these contracts. These poor like companies are out that money. If they, like, that's jobs. It was supposed to be. It said they were going to hire. This is also interesting as an aside for me, because long time ago, way back when, in like 2013, I actually wrote my very first article for Forbes about the jobs that the Keystone XL pipeline might bring, because everyone makes these like hugely inflated, there were all of these different numbers, like jobs this, jobs that, because we're still in like recovery from the recession mode. And I compared it to the building of the Trans-Alaska pipeline, like how many jobs they said they were going to have versus how many were created. So this actually says that they were going to hire 7,000 union workers. And then when all the contracts were announced, it was going to be it was going to be over 8,000. And then in the end, Keystone XL was expected to employ 11,000 workers in 2021. So it's not an insignificant. I mean, these are people's lives; these are people's jobs. So I can see why, like, I don't know if TransCanada can sue, but I can see why the Premier of Alberta is like.
Right. Well, the other thing that I think I pointed out on one of the episodes is that if you're a private landowner, I don't know what percentage of private lands they've gone across compared to like lands or Native American lands or stuff like that. But if you're a private landowner, excuse me, and you negotiated to give up your 100-foot swath or whatever it is for your right of way, then you've been in limbo for as long as you've signed that right of way agreement, and so you're not getting. I mean, if maybe they paid you, maybe they bought it at an option. I don't know how they bought the right of way, but you're kind of stuck with, okay, I can't use this because Keystone has the right to it. Keystone can't build it because they're not given the right to build it. And so now I'm stuck with a piece of property that I literally don't know, can I use it to develop on or not, because they won't sign the permit. And that's ultimately not fair to the landowners who have been tied up in this thing, who wanted the project. And now they can't use their land because the government's interfering with them as well.
Plus, they're just going to like go back on these permits. Like, what does that mean? Like, what if the pipeline was built? What if Trump had won? Okay, and then you have another 4 years. They build the pipeline, and then 4 years after that, a Democrat comes in, they're like, "Oh, we're going to rescind your permit. Now take all the oil out of the pipeline."
Well, yeah, that's the other thing is that
what kind of message does that send? Like,
who's in charge of? I'm being serious when I say this. who is in charge of these pipelines. So you can talk about, FERC or EPA or the Army Corps of Engineers, or there is so many folks involved with this process now that it becomes easy to, kind of put a snafu in the process and you can't get it done. And so that's the danger, that you just put pressure on this group or this group and you can really slow it down. So,
well, no kidding about that. So, way back when, in my previous life as an academic, I did a research project about something called the Northern Tier Pipeline, which was a pipeline that was never built. It was supposed to go from Seattle to the Midwest. It was supposed to bring oil from Alaska to Midwestern refineries, and it was a big pipeline project, and they had to get, across multiple states, Native American reservations. They had to get permits from everyone, like every town, every city, every Native American tribe. The federal government gave, the rate, I think first it was Carter administration, they all gave the permits for it. And it was held up because of one permit, and the city of Seattle killed it because there was this group and they called themselves the Musk Oxen, which is a bizarre, interesting name. And they got together and and because they wouldn't issue that one permit in the city of Seattle, killed the entire pipeline. So yeah, these things are like one little thing can just kill the whole thing. And they never built the pipeline. They never, ended up bringing that oil to the Midwestern refineries.
That's crazy. Okay, all right, let's talk a little bit about the price of oil now. Rising oil prices test producers' willpower. WTI above 50 means U.S. E&P hold production flat while paying down debt. But will they be tempted to go for growth? It's funny, for all the talk about what they will do, there hasn't. The rig count was up a little bit, but there hasn't been a lot of talk about what they're going to do. Or at least I haven't heard a lot. They've been kind of quiet, it seems.
Well, I think they don't want to tell. I mean, right after it happened, I remember the companies were like, no, this doesn't change our plans at all, which of course is what you're going to say if you're the CEO of an oil company. You're going to be like, oh yeah, we're turning the taps on, guys. Prepare for the flood. Like, of course you're not going to say that. But I thought it was interesting that was kind of the price point that they gave, that they're basically saying like they can hold things steady and pay off a lot of debt, but is that really like the best strategy for them? Is that really what they want to do right now? And I think that I can't imagine that there won't be some increase in production. I mean, I just cannot imagine that it's going to be like completely flat, or they're going to only increase production to keep production flat. I can't imagine it. It may not be like a flood of oil, but I can't imagine that no one's going to try to like make an extra buck here or there.
Well, yeah, right. And so it depends on, if you can get your hedges in place, then that will change things. If you can't get your hedges in place, how confident are you that this number is a real number? And I know that some folks that think this price is a good price and it's pretty close to the number, and then there's folks like me who are a little skeptical of it, and everywhere in between. And so I think that's going to kind of to drive part of what you're thinking here, is because if you like the number, you think it's a good number, and you look at the fundamentals and got access to all this data, like, yeah, this is right, then okay, then you might be a little bit more risky. But if you're concerned that this is a little bit overpriced, then you're likely to potentially take things slower because you're afraid the market would get flooded. However, Ellen, let's say with this, let's say that you are sitting here today and you think the price is too high, but you don't trust anyone else to keep the price in check. Are you likely then to go and to drill, because it doesn't matter what you're going to do, the price is going to get kind of beat back down by everyone else, so you need to get it while you can, and so then you kind of contribute to the problem, right?
But that's how it's always worked isn't that kind of how it's always worked in the ostensibly free market, where you've got a lot of companies and every company is going to do what they see as best for themselves, and they're not thinking about the effect that they're going to have on prices for everyone.
No, I agree. So I'm saying that it's kind of hard to make heads or tails of what they're going to go, what they're going to do. I do think, let me ask you this. Let's hear, go through maybe I didn't miss an article. We don't have any more updated comments from the Saudis, do we? Since last week, anything on the Saudi front that would they adjusted their prices, I think we saw, right?
Yeah, they increased their OSPs to Asia, especially. They're selling more to Asia. Although I did read a report that said that there were some producers that thought that they were not getting as much as they wanted. That like some of their requests were not fulfilled, which I think is surprising because Aramco always wants to like fill all of its contracts. So I'm surprised that they're not. But I think that but there's also, I think there was an article today about there's a grade of Russian oil called Urals that's similar to Arab Light, and they're basically saying that European buyers of Saudi Arab Light oil were turning to this Urals oil, which the price went up, but not as much as the Saudi price did. So they're buying more from Russia. Yay. Europe buys more energy from Russia. Good going.
Just real quick, did you see the headline? Because you brought up Europe and Russia. Sorry. Did you see the headline? I think it was like Friday night. Is either Germany or the EU turns over all evidence to Russia for upcoming court case, and it's like, okay. And then the dude gets off the plane in Russia, and they arrest him in the back room and put him on trial, or not trial,
in the police station.
Police station,
Yeah. Oh, God.
It's like, guys, what? I mean, listen, the guy wanted to go back, so he's been forced out. So, he's obviously a brave man. But it was just funny, like, oh God, I'm trying to see where it's at. I can't find it. But anyways, it's just the comment was, the EU hopes that he'll get a fair trial. It's like, that's such bull. We all know.
Is that like everybody being like our hopes and our thoughts and prayers?
Yes, it's just
like go with God.
Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah. Oh, here it is. Germany has given a transcript of interviews of Alexei. How do you say his name? Is it Navalny?
Don't look at me. I do not speak Russian.
Navalny to Russia as part of Moscow's probe into the poisoning of the Kremlin critic. A Justice Ministry spokesperson said, demanding a thorough investigation into the crime. The ministry said Russia had all the information needed to carry out a criminal investigation. It said the German government assumes that all Russian government will now immediately take necessary steps to clarify the crime against Mr. Navalny. It's like, guys, come on, please don't pander to me. I can't take it. Yeah. Anyway, so Russians are selling more to the Europeans while they are, arresting their critics. That's Tuesday in Europe. It sounds like.
Hey, it's cold in Europe, so they want their energy. Keep the lights on, keep the heat on. That's all they care about.
Okay, all right. Let's hear. China economy grows in 2020 as rebound from virus gains. That China economy grows in 2020 as rebound from virus gains.
I'm not in love with that headline.
Yeah. I'm not a wordsmith, but I think we could.
Yeah. So my question to you is, okay, so it says China eked out 2.3% economic growth in 2020, likely becoming the only major economy to expand as shops and factories reopened relatively early. I love the picture that they accompany it with, which is a woman eating an ice cream cone and another woman holding a Starbucks walking past a Chanel ad. This is from October 2020. Okay, so there's more pictures. All right, sorry, I'm not going to bore our listeners with a description of pictures, but okay, so but can we trust these numbers? Like, why are we even trusting these numbers at all?
The fascination with the Chinese numbers is fascinating to me.
That is a very interesting point. Okay, let's discuss the fascination with the fascinating numbers.
So if you go to, and just so we know, we forgot to start this podcast because they're coming to podcast now. This is would you call it a sci-fi fantasy?
Right. Yeah. This podcast is pure fiction. I think more of the sci-fi fantasy realm than like anything true. There's no misinformation here. In fact, there's no information here.
We're brainstorming for a book that we're co-authoring, and so this is just us working out our ideas on a weekly basis. Plots, characters. That's why we had a spy story. So we're working. This is just all this. So yeah. So when I talk about COVID, it's in the context of this novel that we're.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, nothing should be taken as medical. As we say often, we are not medical experts, no medical advice, no financial advice, no anything advice, actually.
None. So in this novel that we're working on.
Yes, China in this novel. There's a country called China that no intended what is it that they say like no any resemblance to
Oh
anything in
yeah,
real life is entirely coincidental.
China with the president called Xi Jinping. It's completely coincidental. Didn't mean to do that. So the thing that's been striking to me about the COVID stuff, whatever you say about wherever you come in on the COVID situation, is that China has been pointed to over and over and over again from the West, looking at their numbers, looking at their numbers, looking at their numbers. And it's been interesting because when we talk about how much oil they're importing, like, okay, I don't know, maybe, we're talking about their economic growth in this area, like, I don't know. So going into the pre-COVID life, you always had to use the China numbers because that's what you had to use, but you always kind of knew that maybe they're making it up, maybe they're not. It's kind of hard to tell, case by case scenario. We have kind of lost that narrative in COVID because we wanted to count how many cases that they had or how many deaths they had or whatever. We want to compare that to other nations, and we got this whole game of comparing nation to nation on COVID numbers, and they kind of got lumped in there with everyone else. And so now when you see that their economy is rebounded, miraculously, it's like, well, I don't know if it has or hadn't, to be quite honest with you. I'm not there. I'm in Texas. But where is that air of suspicion that we had over the Chinese numbers literally a year ago? Like it's now gone. And it's like,
Oh
that's
yeah.
like, I'm not saying that I don't know. Everything they say is not a lie. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that where's the air of curiosity?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, didn't I just saw on, I think it was reported on Al Arabiya, but it was probably like a Reuters thing because all their global news comes from elsewhere. But they were showing, there was like a video basically showing these like massive, I believe they were calling them quarantine camps being built in China because of rising coronavirus cases. I mean, like these things were massive. Like you thought that remember when they like built a field hospital in like Central Park, maybe kind of, it was like a tent.
Yeah, yeah.
This was like massive, massive, massive numbers of tents. And it was just like, okay, remember when the New York Times held up China as this like great example of like China conquered coronavirus. Maybe we should be like China. I'm not sure we should trust everything that we see coming out of China.
Well, I mean, last week they locked down 22 million people over like 70 cases.
And by lockdown, we mean like they welded their doors shut, not like the kind of lockdowns where we have where they're like, please stay home, everybody, and restrict how many times you go to the supermarket every week.
Yeah, and so I do think that it's just been funny because, as you say, I heard some medical guru who is a doctor, not a doctor, but he's a doctor, like health doctor, who used to work for the CDC, and he was praising China for how they handled it and all this stuff. And he didn't do any of the nuances of the batch testing or any of the stuff that you have to do when you talk about China numbers. And it's kind of like one of those moments, like, okay, where is the curiosity around our China numbers real? Like, if we're at a spot now to where we're just accepting China numbers, so if you remember, when the virus was kind of moving this time last year, I mean, we go back and listen to the tape. I don't remember what I said, but we were like, okay, it's Wuhan, China shut down, China this. That's what they do sometimes. They overreact, and then okay, now the whole country's on lockdown. Okay, and then it goes to Iran. You're like, okay, well now you got a problem because you got China and Iran. Those two data sources aren't really trustworthy and more prone to shut things down because they can. And then it goes to Italy. You're like, okay, now it's in Italy. We can kind of step back and evaluate the data a little bit differently. There's kind of that shift, at least from folks like me and you, because now you know that Italy may fudge the numbers here and there, but they're not going to be like China or Iran is. And so you kind of felt like that was the first time you could actually measure what was going on, the death rate, and all that kind of stuff. That was just a year ago. And now we're like, hey, China says this, therefore, yay. And it's like, guys, like, to me, it is tied up with COVID stuff because it feels like there's a lot of praise for how China's handled the virus and kept it in check without the realizing that they have a state-run media company, it's propaganda and all this stuff. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah. Plus, we've long been questioning China's GDP numbers. I mean, we've been questioning China's GDP numbers for a long time because they set targets, and so it's like it's like Stalin's 5-year plans. Oh, we achieved it in 3 years. Well, okay, by what metrics? Well, they just changed the metrics, or they just say that they did. I mean, here it says total activity in 2020 was 102 trillion yuan, which is apparently $15.6 trillion,
Yeah.
according to the government. This AP article says where it comes from, according to the government. That is about 75% of the size of the 20.8 trillion forecast by the IMF for the US economy, which is expected to shrink by 3 to 4% from 2019. The IMF estimates China will be about 90% of the size of the US economy by 2025, though with more than 4 times as many people, average income will be lower. Now, I don't put much stock in much that in these IMF predictions because, well, first of all, I think predictions are always wrong, but and also they say silly things like Saudi Arabia must sell oil for $90 in order to break even on its budget, when that's a totally meaningless statistic. It's a totally meaningless data point because Saudi Arabia can access debt market, and it's a pointless number. It's just stupid. So I'm not like saying that, but it's an interesting. If they're taking the government's numbers at at their like a face value, then this is what they're saying. Like we could expect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, it's possible that this is what happened. It's also possible it's not what happened. It's it's okay.
It's also possible that these numbers come from like heavy industrial spending. And haven't we talked about how the Chinese economy is they're kind of like in the process of converting to a consumer economy? And so like if you're a consumer based economy and you're like, okay, the government's now going to spend all this money on like industrials and stuff like that, well, like where are they really going?
Well,
where's
where's
the path?
If you're measuring GDP as government spending as far as GDP growth, well, then you can really get some wonky numbers, whether it's the U.S. or it's in China. That's just a criticism of measuring. So if China is overly funding through the private sector or through government programs a bunch of infrastructure projects and stuff like this, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, that's not real. It's not the same as Bob starts a business down here and he's doing it, and so
it's okay. We killed all of that in our country, so.
Oh yeah. Yes. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Wong, you're gonna have to hold the hand here on this one because I do not have a Financial Times subscription.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't have that either, but I did see it when I clicked through it through Twitter.
Okay. So
if you click on it through a Twitter link, you may be able to read this article. And it was so interesting that I had to include it. Normally, I would not include articles that are difficult for most people to access. So my apologies.
Okay, so tell us what's going on. I'll see if I can find it on Twitter, but you tell us what's going on.
Yeah. So here's what's really interesting about this look at ADNOC. So ADNOC is basically the only oil company or big oil company out there that has not cut its capex this year or last year in 2020. So all the big oil companies, it's even Aramco, which famously like has huge capex, spends lots of capex, and did not cut its capex spending too. ADNOC did not, and ADNOC is like going full steam ahead, and they are looking. So right now, I think their production is like 3 million, and they want to increase it to 5 million barrels a day by like 2030. I think it says in the article. It's mostly an interview with the CEO of ADNOC, which is the that's the national oil company of the UAE of Abu Dhabi. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is where like all the oil is produced in UAE, or most of the oil. Sharjah also produces some. So it's really interesting because they're really, really committed to expansion. They believe, and I've heard, the UAE oil minister, Suhail Mazrouei, say this many times, particularly, I think he said it in Calgary a couple of years ago when companies were still cutting capex just because of, from the first low price problem, not the current COVID low price issue. But he's like, look, cutting all this capex is going to result in an oil shortage. And like the UAE was committed to spending. They're like, we're going to be here to be providing that oil. And that's the tact that ADNOC is taking, is basically, we believe there's going to be an oil shortage because all these companies have been cutting their capex for years and years and years. We're spending, and like, we're all in. We don't believe that, oil is dead and all that BP and Shell, like, we want to be a renewable energy company, actually, not an oil company business. And
that's strange.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because UAE has really kind of come into its own in these past couple of years. Like a lot of people used to say that like UAE was kind of just like following what the Saudis did, and I think that they've shown in more respects, both diplomatically and geopolitically, but also in the oil industry, that they are pursuing their own interests, and it's very interesting. And this, I don't like the title, like they defy retreat from oil with push to pump up output, because the Saudis are also spending to increase their output,
Mhm.
but they're also cutting capex because they've got issues with their dividend and Aramco and all of that. Whereas ADNOC isn't isn't dealing with that. So I think it's a different tact, and I think it's an important one to kind of keep an eye on, because I mean, some people might say this is risky, this is a stupid idea, oil's done, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's a great idea, fantastic idea. I mean,
I think it's a fantastic idea. So yeah, it says it's from 3 million barrels a day in 2016 to 5 million barrels a day by 2030. You're talking, almost 14 years there to get an extra 2 million barrels a day production online. That's a long period of time to go from 3 to 5. So it's not like they're saying, "Hey, we're going to ramp up to 5 million barrels in 6 months or by the end of 2022." They have and so if they find themselves in a spot to where 2025 rolls around and they don't want to continue this plan, it sounds like it's a long lead item that they can kind of course correct if they need to, but they're banking on the fact that they expect. Go back to that last article about China's GDP. If those numbers are true, then this makes all the sense in the world, right?
yeah. Oh yeah, it absolutely does. And they're, I mean, they're basically said like they don't have to deal with shareholders. They don't have to deal with the kinds of, with dividends. I mean, they have shareholders, yeah, the UAE government and the Abu Dhabi government, but I meant like they don't have public shareholders. They don't have that kind of pressure. And perhaps that's really allowing them to, take a different route. That I wouldn't say that they're defying this retreat from oil, more so that they're saying we don't believe in these doom and gloom scenarios, and so we are betting that because all y'all do,
Mhm.
that there's going to be more room for us. I think it's a bold move.
So let's take that and couple it with this story, which is Total quits the API. I mean, I saw this and I was like, at first it's kind of like, I'm surprised Total still wanted to be part of the API, but Total is obviously a huge oil and gas company all over the world, and the
But
API
very, very French. Sorry.
very very French. And we also have the story here. Total to speeds up renewable push for $2.5 billion
Yeah.
investment in Indian solar power.
They're buying
So
like 20% of the company, by the way. I think I implied when I tweeted this article that they like bought the entire company. No. First of
no,
all, I don't think India permits that at all. Like if you're an Indian company, you have to be majority owned by Indians.
mm.
But they're buying like 20%. They're buying a 20% stake in the company.
So does Total join the ranks of BP and Shell as another oil and gas company that does not want to be an oil and gas company?
It's interesting because they weren't really going that way when everyone else does.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah.
And what was also interesting to me is that Total has also defied other issues. So back in, what was it, like 2018, when all the like Khashoggi stuff hit the fan, and then there was the FII conference in Saudi Arabia, and all these like tons of people just pulled out, and like all these other oil companies CEOs pulled out. There's a like huge amount of pressure to pull out. Total didn't, and like the head of Total, Patrick Pouyanné or something. I'm sorry, I don't speak French, so I probably butchered his name. I apologize. He was like up there with Khalid Al Fali. They were like fake signing stuff because all that stuff had already been agreed to before, but it was like they reenacted it for the crowd, and like he was like, we're all in with the Saudis. At least that's the impression he was giving. So it's not like they're followers.
And they're also, don't they have a big play or some stake in Iraq as well?
They probably, yeah. At least they definitely did. I don't know if they still do, but yeah.
Right. I'm saying like when you're in the oil and gas business and you're in Iraq, like that's serious.
Yeah.
that's not like out here in West Texas. Like when you're going to get some oil, like you're a hardcore oil and gas company, and so to say that you're wanting to pull out now because it's like, well, I mean, I don't know. Let's see here. Total in Iraq. There's a press release from that's 2014. That's old. Their website says we have been active in Iraq for nearly a century since the 1920s. So unless they've stopped, their website says that they're active in Iraq. So, I'm just saying, like, that's kind of weird to say that you want to drill for oil in Iraq, but you're wanting to become a green.
But it's too risky to be affiliated with the American Petroleum Institute, which, yeah.
I mean,
oh, it's so much virtue signaling.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Like,
what do you bet they'll be back in like a year?
I don't know if a year or not, but they'll be back. I think so. I think like those the guys in Abu Dhabi, they're going to crush it because they're like, yeah, we're an oil company.
We're an oil company. We produce oil. We sell oil. That's what we do. And we're going to do it well.
We're going to do it well. And so, those guys are going to start making money. And then all these green guys will be like, oh, okay.
Well, the other thing that they have going for them that Abu Dhabi and the Saudis also have going for them is that their costs are, they say like we're the lowest carbon producers out there.
Mm-hmm.
And they are some of the lowest cost producers out there, and so they can calculate their carbon footprint to show our oil is the least carbon intensive oil. I mean, I think most of it depends on like how you actually use it as opposed to how you drill for it, but still it's kind of an interesting tact to take.
I think I told you the story about the dirty diesels, right, that they sent to Iraq. I was over here before I lived in Dallas, so it's probably 5-6 years ago. I pulled up. I was looking for about an F-250, and they had a parking lot full of F-250s. I mean, there's a ton of these suckers. And I was like, hey, what you got? And they showed me. I was like, well, I'm going to go look at some of those over there. They said, you can't. I'm like, well, why? They're like, they're dirty diesels. They were sending these diesels to Iraq, and they didn't have to meet the EPA requirements to be sent over there.
Of course, because according to everything that they say about climate change, whether you emit carbon in China or in the US doesn't matter because it's a global phenomenon and it's global climate change. Like maybe, technically like you won't have as bad like air pollution in a certain place, but we're all connected. It's like all in this whole thing together. So where they emit the carbon doesn't matter.
Apparently it does.
But apparently it does.
They get send the dirty diesels to Iraq, and you couldn't buy them here. And I was like, that isn't.
Is that like when they send the T-shirts for the like team that didn't win the Super Bowl to Africa and stuff like that?
I think that, yeah. And so I don't even. At least the shirts have value. Like people need the shirts. It's like, but the dirty diesels, like if you can send the dirty diesel wherever you want, and it's not. Just to be clear, this was not like Bob, the private financier, bought 100 or 300 dirty diesels. It was the government that was sending them over. Like this is a government deal.
We can't use them in our country, but they're okay for you guys. Oh,
right.
God.
It was a government deal, so it was just obnoxious. So.
Oh, so much hypocrisy. Much hypocrisy, and you don't even expect it to be different.
That's the thing that really gets you. That's just.
Of course, would it be hilarious if they sent like EVs over there because like they can't even keep the electricity going, in some places.
That's where we're going next. I'm glad you brought that up. 3 companies want to charge your electric vehicles as you drive. Automakers and utilities hope wireless charging on roads can calm EV range anxiety, but questions remain about cost. Let me just say this. I am the proud owner of a Ford F-250 that uses diesel. I have no desire to go to an EV anytime soon. So I'm not against them. I'm just not looking to buy one. And I think the interesting thing is if Biden really, did you listen to his speech the other night, last Thursday?
No, I haven't listened to any of his speeches.
He talks about his plan to put in the infrastructure and the EV infrastructure and all this. And it's kind of like, I don't know what Obama was thinking when he said shovel-ready jobs, but he did come back and say, yeah, I was wrong about that. I think Biden's
Yeah, the shovel ready jobs weren't quite so shovel ready.
right. I think
Remember
Biden's going to
that?
find that his EV infrastructure plans are really not practical. And so we've kind of joked about California, but could California handle that many EVs on its grid?
There's no way.
Right. And so, anyways, so the EV stuff, I get folks are excited about it, and I'm not against it. It's just I don't care who wants to charge my EV. I don't want an EV, so that's my take on EVs.
So they're saying Renault has this induction charging system. So they're saying how it works. There's a picture here that's supposed to explain how it works. Okay. The vehicle signals it would like to charge. It enters a lane with embedded chargers. So you have to stay in the lane that has the chargers.
Which, to be clear, is going to be a unique lane from so if you're on like I-20 and it's a 2 on one side, 2 eastbound, 2 westbound, you'd have to have another lane built.
Or can you convert an existing lane? Do you know how long it takes to build another lane to the highway? So near me,
the picture has as a separate lane, so I'm assuming it's separate.
Oh, okay. I don't know. But do you know how long it takes to build a new lane and highway? So right near me, they were building this new lane. It was supposed to be like those lanes where you enter and it's like they charge you a toll like based on the traffic, which means like around here, like most of the time it's like 0. But it took them. I think they've been building it for 5 years, like one new lane each way, like 5 years.
So if it is the main highway, if it's not a separate lane, then you're gonna have 18-wheelers and stuff that are just be pounding on it and beating it up, and that's just unless you figure out
a charging pad embedded in the road. So you put a charging pad in the road. So there you go. You got to dig up the road anyway. So even if you're not building a new road, you're going to dig up the old road. So that's going to cause, and that's going to take like 10 years or 1 year at least. In the road, uses electricity to create an alternating electromagnetic field with a receiving coil. That's in the road. Then in the car, you have the receiving coil. A receiver on the bottom of the vehicle converts the electromagnetic field into electricity that can be used to charge a battery or power a motor.
Let me just stop you right there. Let me stop right there. You have an iPhone, right? Or you have a Droid?
No, I have an iPhone.
Okay, I have an iPhone too.
I got this nice new case.
You have AirPods?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so right here.
I have the AirPods too. Let me just tell you, so you know this. So if you have your AirPods hooked up to your phone and you're walking along, and then let's say your husband goes outside and cranks up the car, and your phone is within distance of your car, your phone then connects to your car, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's not controversial. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Even though you didn't want it to.
Right. Yeah. It's constantly connecting to the wrong thing. And
if we can't solve that, I'm not buying that you're going to get a moving car to charge. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, you're right.
It just seems like it's I mean, if we can't keep my Bluetooth from switching devices, I have no faith today that we're going to get this going. Now, people don't send me a note saying it's more technology. I get all that. The point is that it's more complex. More things go wrong, and there's 18-wheelers, and there's all this stuff. And what are you going to do if you're on theoretically you can go infinite distance now because you don't have to stop, right? And you're out in the middle of the desert, and you're thinking, I'm gonna go, and then it freezes up, or there's a wreck, and you gotta say, I don't know. To me, it's one of those things.
Here's my favorite quote from the article. Yeah, I agree. My favorite quote. Technically speaking, it works, he said of the technology.
Technically speaking. I think the word is figuratively, maybe theoretically.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I have no faith in this stuff right now. It's just.
It sounds cool. It could be cool. Apparently, here's a picture of them building it underneath a road in Tel Aviv. Okay, it sounds cool, but you can't convince me that they're going to deploy this in like 4 years, because the next election is going to like switch. It's all political.
Oh gosh.
I mean, it would be cool if I don't know, they should put this in Neom if they ever build it.
Well, it was last week we were talking about the Saudi city, right? Was that on the show?
I don't think we talked about it on the show. I haven't looked into it as much as I probably should have.
Yeah, no, I know. It was on Overtime with Greg Williams. So we're talking about the Saudi city, and he was asking my thoughts. I said, well, you got to understand that the Saudis can just build a city where they want to, and so so you think about technology like this would be a great spot if the Saudis thinks it works to implement in somewhere like that, and the Saudis, net neutral carbon zero city, because they're designing it from scratch. They don't have all these laws about eminent domain. They can really try the technology out. I mean, they can just do it there. Whereas here, as you're saying, this is a huge disruption to the way to life. And if it doesn't work, the problem is guess what? You go bust the road back up again. It's not like it's a small fix. And so, and then if the road's broke, where we're at, every time it freezes, big potholes pop up in the road because the water gets in there, it freezes, it expands. Are you going to stop that problem? Like, there's all kinds of things that, so
Yeah.
if you had some kind of new city like they have in China, they have in Saudi Arabia, that would be an interesting spot to see this technology deployed, because the risk is very, very low and you can control the traffic size and stuff like that. So that's what I would think.
Yeah, it just makes a lot more sense instead if you really want it, just like put in stricter emission standards for car, like do that instead of try to like change all the infrastructure.
Yeah. Don't give me.
I mean, I'm not saying that I support that, but like if your goal is to like reduce that, then just
Right.
like, like you really want to spend like you really want to change all the infrastructure at once. Like,
yeah, I would. Okay, so here, this is supposed to be practical here. I would say this in all seriousness. I'm not for this, but if you're going to try it out, let's find a city that has kind of like in Texas, all the cities have little squares, right? So you can kind of, I don't know, it's not really how it was in Louisiana where I was from, but in Texas, that's kind of how it is. All the cities have little squares and blocks and stuff. Find a city like that in Texas or somewhere else that has 20, 30,000 people. Subsidize the program and just implement it there. So they have low traffic. Like our city wouldn't work. We have a big through traffic because of where we're at. But some city a little bit further out, subsidize it there, give them EVs, and let them try it out there, because the cost for it going wrong there is far less than if you try to roll it out in these big metropolitan areas and it doesn't work. So I'm not in favor of that, but I'm saying if you're going to do it, 20, 30,000 people, buy them a bunch of EV cars, put the stuff in the roads, let it work there, see how it works, and then you can work the kinks out instead of going to like San Francisco or down, So that would be my 2 cents. Biden, if you want some advice on that, just holler at your boy. So, okay, Ms. Wald, we are up against the clock. So where will you be this week?
Let's see. This week, I am going to be on Bloomberg Law, which is a new thing I have not written for before, but
Are you not a lawyer?
No,
Okay.
I am not a lawyer. I am simply providing some insights on a case that the Supreme Court is supposed to hear oral arguments on tomorrow that has to do with localities suing oil companies under state nuisance laws for damages for climate change. So hopefully that'll be up this week, and we'll check it out this week. And I'll let you give the new news if you like.
Okay. Well, this week, not only will I be at the War Room newsletter, Ms. Wald will be at the War Room newsletter on Wednesday. So it will not be behind the paywall. It will be free for everyone to read, and so she will be there. You got 8 columns you're doing, is that right?
Yeah, roughly 2 months.
2 months, so roughly 8 columns. So for the next 2 weeks, give or take, Ms. Wald will be there on Wednesdays. So the warroomnewsletter.com is where you can go sign up for free and read Ms. Wald there for free. Because she will not.
Already working on my column. I'm very excited.
She will not be at Forbes, so she will be at the War Room newsletter. So there you go. So go check that out. And again, she'll be there for 2 months and at least, hopefully longer, maybe longer if we can convince her to stay. But it will be free for everyone to read. I would say because I'm not a communist, but I do have a paywall, so I can't say that.
Free for 2 months, and then
it will be free. Those next 2 months, everything she writes on the website will be free.
Yes. So check it out.
Go check it out, Ms. Wald. Okay. I guess by the time we talk next Monday, Joe Biden will be president, or will they have already invoked the 25th?
Who knows? I mean, aren't there like thousands of National Guardsmen in the Capitol to make sure that he gets inaugurated? So
yeah. So I'm joking. They will not invoke the 25th by the next time when we're on this podcast.
But another propane tank could blow up in a homeless encampment that could like shut the whole thing down. So you never know.
Yeah, I don't even know. My wife was asking me, "Are you wanting to go to DC for the inauguration?" I talked about going, and I said, "I don't think they're actually having one to go to." Or
it's like online. Lady
Yeah,
Gaga's gonna
yeah.
sing to an empty plaza, and we're all gonna
Yeah.
like watch online, I
Yeah.
guess.
Oh,
I
God.
don't think I'm gonna watch.
And that's Wednesday. So instead of doing that Wednesday, go to the warroomnewsletter.com and read the
Walled Wednesdays.
Walled Wednesdays, the lovely prose of the one and only Dr. Energy. And with that, we will be back next week.